welcome to Hatching for Health, the Jessica Hatch Show. Tonight we are joined by a director from Childproof America. So I don't know if you guys know the numbers here in Houston alone as it relates to sex trafficking with children, but they are staggering. I'm learning a lot tonight, and you will as well, so I encourage parents to stay tuned for the whole episode, as I think there's some very important tips that you're going to hear tonight. Just some facts. ICAC Houston cyber tips has increased from 5,400 tips to 9,000 from just 2019 to 2020, so almost doubled, and that's covering only 8 counties around Houston. And this is phone calls and people reaching out to this organization about concerns with their children being possibly sex trafficked or many other things. So we're going to have Angela join us now so we can get into the details and understand more about this, because this isn't something anybody wants to talk about, and it's not something that is on the front of everyone's conversations these days. It's uncomfortable, and if it's your child, it's definitely not something that you want to ever imagine would happen.
Right.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. So tell us your position with Childhood America.
So I am the Family Guides Program Director. My role is twofold. I oversee our 2 big programs right now, which is our Family Guides, which is for the local areas in Houston of the Woodlands, Sugarland, Katy, and Memorial. And it's for families who are experiencing the crisis of their child being trafficked. So for example, you've filed a police report, your child's missing, maybe you found some evidence on a device that indicates that your child's being trafficked, whether it's conversations, photos, videos. You would reach out to our intake line and we would do an interview. If you filed a police report, it's been determined that your child is being trafficked, then I will pair you up with our vetted volunteers. It's a team of 2 family guides, and we will educate you, we will provide support, we will walk you through an action plan of what to do once your child's recovered. And then the second program is our national support line, and we decided to launch this simultaneously because of the calls that Kelly Litvak, who is our director and founder, and myself had been receiving pretty consistently. And it was just families from across the country looking for answers to help them decide what to do. Is my child being trafficked? Are they being groomed? My child is missing. Where can I go with this?
Yeah, so you've got situations, and y'all's particular support line, it's considered Childproof America National Support Line.
Yes.
And I'm just going to even begin by providing that number, because I think it's important. You never know who's going through what in any moment, but it's 833-274-8433, and that's 833-CP-GUIDE. And so this is a number that calls are coming in, and you guys are dispatching them, okay, how can we help this child or family or parent, whomever it is? So in that moment, that call comes in. I mean, is it almost like a 911 call? I mean, there's got to be distress in the person calling, trying to understand, what is going on. So tell us about some of those calls that you've had.
Well, actually, before I even got here, I got a call this morning already on our call line. It was a mom out east. Her daughter was 19 years old, and she had been missing, and a lot of her questions were, what do I do? Do I file a police report? What resources are available? What can I do? It's so overwhelming. So a lot of what we do first is provide support. We help the parent really come back to center a little bit, because it is hard, and they are doing the very best that they can do in this situation, and we always want to reassure them and give them hope that you're doing the very best that you can, and we appreciate that they call us. In this particular case, there wasn't really a crime being committed, so we didn't refer her to the police department. However, we did refer her to some resources where she can become educated on human trafficking, what to expect. And then the other piece of it too is I coached her through how to talk to your child. Because the biggest piece of success, in my opinion, or one of the biggest pieces to success, is really redeveloping that bond. Because what happens with traffickers is they work to isolate your child. So they may say things like, your parents are awful, they don't care about you, they're controlling. And so when you reenact those statements that the traffickers stating, it reinforces what the trafficker
like
is
how they're
them.
trying to manipulate you. So it's like by them actually getting into like, you know, what they're trying to tell their own child, it's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm being told. Like, maybe mom's right, maybe dad's right. I need to, you know, break away from this. But I mean, where does this even start? Is this mostly online? Is it, I mean, where someone, like a parent gets a hold of the child's phone and sees, I mean, how does this even go, oh my gosh, I think my child's being, you know, a victim?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions around human trafficking. A lot of them stem from the movie Taken. I'm sure we've all seen those posts. I know I see them on my Facebook page. Oh my gosh, I was almost a victim of human trafficking. There was Vaseline on my windshield and there was a van in the corner. The van in the corner is like 1%, if that, less than that, because trafficking is much more sophisticated than that. It starts with a grooming process. It could be someone in your local high school. It could be a cheerleader. It could be a soccer mom.
So you call it grooming process. So that's kind of a term that, you know, I would think of many other things, like your dog gets groomed. So, but they're actually, that's a term with, you know, someone finding that victim and like grooming them into, you know, almost like bringing them into, you know, whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish with this individual. And so continue on, because I want to like make sure I'm identifying the word grooming. Yeah.
And so that in that grooming process, they're creating a bond with your child. So again, it could be, and it's everywhere. If you go onto our website, which is childproofamerica.org, we have a link you can click on. It's called Spot the Pimp. And we have on there a soccer mom, a cheerleader, a military person, and then we have what you would think of as your pimp, right? And they're all groomers.
Really?
So, and it could be anywhere. What a groomer looks for is someone who is feeling insecure, who feels like they don't belong. They really, it's like a psychological game for them.
Yeah.
And so it's really easy to tap into that middle school, high school age where we feel our most insecure. We aren't really getting along with our parents. We're trying to figure out who we are. And so they step in and they fill a void.
Yeah.
And they develop this bond. And they friend them, or they might boyfriend them in. And traffickers are really patient. We have our summit coming up in January, and one of our survivor speakers is this beautiful young woman, and they groomed her for well over a year before they started trafficking her.
Really? Meaning consistently just communicating with her? Like, is this where they're actually meeting up with her, or is it all, okay, so like...
So it started online, it could be in school. In her case, it was at the mall. She was having lunch, she was 13 years old, and two girls walked up to her and said, hey, you see that guy over there? He thinks you're really cute. Well, what 13-year-old wouldn't like the idea of an attractive boy thinking that she's cute? And so she was boyfriended in.
Really? So there was like a team making that situation happen. And so they, it's like whoever this, you know, initial traffic or individual is, groomer is, it's like they're like, okay, so this is the plan, you're going to go. And so it's not just like one person that's trying to bring in like a child.
Right.
And the girls that approached her like are like her age. They even have.
They can be. Absolutely, they can be. So there's a hierarchy within the system. So it you know, or it could just be an online conversation through Snapchat, through Minecraft, or any of the other games that kiddos play. There isn't really a safe space where a child couldn't be groomed.
It's just too easy these days. Very. So, like, what are some of Childproof America's goals? Like, ultimately, because obviously you're getting the intake, you know, that you were out to help people, but you know, like long term, like, are you able to see that, the results? Like, you get involved in the beginning with guidance, and then are they following up with you in kind of the final stages where that child has been removed from being trafficked?
In some cases, yes. We've learned when they've been recovered, sometimes not always, because it's a national hotline. Locally, we do see more of the recovery process, but crisis is really just one of it, part of what we do. Our goal really is to educate and prevent. Years ago when drugs became really well known, people were really afraid to talk to their kids about drugs because they didn't really understand.
Yeah.
But now we can have conversations with our children about drugs because we understand what they do, what they are, so it's not as scary anymore. So our goal is to educate parents and not make human trafficking scary to talk about. And be able to have those conversations and understand and not be afraid to look at your child's phone, know their friends, who are they talking to, what apps are they on. Look for changes. Have they changed their friend group? Are they becoming more secretive, more isolated, more combative? Our goal is really to empower the family and really empower the teen to recognize what trafficking is.
Yeah, of course. Do you guys, host any type of, events? It sounds like you do, but even just like smaller groups where parents can come and kind of take a, maybe even a class of some sort and just educate themselves, in a group? Y'all do?
We are working to bring that back with COVID. Everything was put on hold, but yes, Kelly has done a lot of presentations of prevention in the past.
I think that. So let's talk more about those classes to come, because I think those are really important resources for, for families. But we do have to take a commercial break, so we will be right back with you. And you're going to see a commercial from one of our sponsors, Local Table, which is a restaurant chain in Cypress, Katy, and Fulshire.
Guests in your home should only include the ones you invite. When it's time to unwind and catch up with friends, the last thing you need is more work to do. The BioMist mosquito elimination system will put your mind at ease and entertains those unwanted guests, giving you the undivided quality time, focus, and attention you and your guests deserve. BioMist mosquito elimination system will also rid your home from webs and spiders while eliminating mosquitoes carrying mosquito-borne illnesses such as West Nile, dengue fever, and others.
Welcome back from the commercial break. For those of you that have just joined us, we have Angela here, and she is the director for Childproof America. And we are learning quite a bit about sex trafficking with children. Some statistics here that I think are important for people to be aware of is there roughly 74,000 just in Texas of children being sex trafficked, and then domestically like 300,000. So these numbers are, really alarming. I think it's important for anybody tuning in that may feel like their child is being sex trafficked or somebody they know, to definitely get in touch with this organization. They have a hotline you can call, and that number, again, I will say is 833-274-8433, which is 833-CP-GUIDE. So Angela, I know we were talking about just the education that parents, would, I'm sure, all like to have, and it's just kind of finding those opportunities and then being presented to them. I know the event, y'all, tell me a little bit about that. It's going to be in January next year?
Yep, January 15th of 2022. It's going to be at the Smart Financial Center. And we are bringing in 6 survivors around the country. So they're going to share their story, but then they're going to give tips and educate, parents and kids on how to not become sex trafficked, or what to avoid and what to look for from their own personal experience.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good event to be a part of.
Right.
Or attend, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those survivors are those people that you guys were actually involved with, or they found you? How did that relationship come about?
So we reached out to them, and then they came in 3 of them came in for the photo shoot. Due to constraints, not everybody could make it. 2 of the survivors are Jerry Epstein survivors. Wow. We have a survivor that was trafficked out of college, one that was trafficked, like I mentioned earlier, from the mall. So each survivor has a different story. So you don't want to miss this, because someone is going to connect with you because their stories are so different. And in developing and putting the program together, that was so important to make sure that everybody understands that trafficking doesn't choose socioeconomic status. There's not a specific culture, race. It affects everybody in every community. And so we want everybody to understand that and see that through our summit.
Yeah, I completely agree. So you told me a little bit, the term trafficking is actually much more broad than I would expect. I mean, we're focused here talking about, for the children, that you guys actually help up to 21 years old, through the hotline, and then past that you guys offer other resources. But there's not just sex trafficking. Tell me a little bit about the other areas that I guess encompass the term human trafficking altogether. Because it's, I've heard stories, seen movies, but you knowing more about it than most. Tell us a little bit.
So the other 2 terms that are mostly associated here in the Houston area is labor trafficking and organ trafficking. Labor trafficking statistics, it's about 25 million people worldwide are enslaved in some form of human trafficking.
25 million?
25 million worldwide. So globally, on a global level, whether that's labor trafficking, or sex trafficking, it does not usually include brides. Child brides is a form of trafficking. So there's a lot of nuances within trafficking, but Childproof America focuses specifically on sex trafficking. I will say that Texas government, Governor Abbott has been amazing in putting together a task force to fight human trafficking. And so it's becoming more aware here in Texas. Yeah. And we're hoping that globally, especially with our summit, that people really understand what sex trafficking is.
Yeah, well, you were telling me here that, Texas is number 2 in the country for trafficking. Yeah. With Houston being number 1,
right,
within Texas, and then California and Texas are the 2 main countries.
Yep, they're the 2 main states.
Or 2 main states.
But Houston's number 1 in trafficking in the country. So in the United States, Houston is number 1 for trafficking.
And is that for children or trafficking in general?
Trafficking in general.
Okay, so a large amount of that being children, but then you talked even about, this is kind of going out there, but organs, where people are, is that meaning someone's getting kidnapped and an organ's being taken, and that's a form of trafficking?
It's a form of trafficking. It's not an area of my expertise. I just know that it's part of trafficking in the United States.
Crazy. So when you talk about, or we talk about these numbers, as in Houston being specific, the number 1 place for trafficking, it's a number of different ways. I think, I would assume children is the main, thing related to that. I just feel like it's not easy targets, but they're, like you said, they're vulnerable. They're, going through, especially in this day and age, the way children are, and people not wanting to befriend you, and you feel kind of lost. And when someone, especially through social media, when you don't even know who they are, they could be a kid or an adult, and you have that relationship start there. It seems it seems very, very easy to be pulled in, you know, I mean, more than ever, right?
Yeah, it's absolutely. And one of the biggest challenges in working with survivors and helping the families really understand the concept is that when a person is trafficked, they are not usually aware that they're being trafficked. So you and I are having this conversation about trafficking, and somebody in our audience may have been trafficked as a child or a teen and not even realized that they were a trafficking victim. And I hear that a lot when I'm talking to maybe some partners or other organizations or even former survivors, where they'll say, I didn't even realize that I was being trafficked as a child.
So you talked a little bit too before we started the show about branding, that there's sometimes even branding them or having a tattoo put on this individual during that trafficking. I guess that's just part of, like, you know, them trying to be in control and almost mark their prey in a way. It's so is there children that are living with, you know, their parents right now that are currently like being trafficked, where they're disappearing, coming back, and and no one even knows?
Yes.
And meaning they're being taken out, and I guess obviously a lot of this has to do with money too. I mean, this is a huge part of it, right? I mean, they're, in addition to doing this, they're getting paid, and so not knowing, you know, how wrong in every way that it is, you know, so, you know, the targets can be, like you said, I mean, it could be someone that maybe doesn't have the income as a family, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can maybe even help. I mean, are boys and girls just as targeted as, you know, because I think more girls, but are boys targeted just as much?
Yes. So boys are a roughly 45 to 48% of the population that are targeted for trafficking. Because remember, they're meeting a demand. So the traffickers look for them based on demand. So if it's a boy, a girl.
And these are teenagers, I mean.
The average age where a child becomes involved in human trafficking is 13. That's the average age.
Right, when they hit a teenager.
Right. And so, and I want to touch on a couple of things, like where you had said that they could be living at home and being trafficked. Yes, sometimes they're trafficked from their own families. Sometimes the kids are skipping school and their parents aren't informed that they're being taken out of school and trafficked. So it happens on a lot of different levels. The best prevention is really having a good relationship with your child and know who your child's friends are.
Yeah.
And you know, getting to know them. And in terms of money, not always are they receiving money. Sometimes they're coerced into it, threatened, blackmailed, and the money gets turned over to their trafficker. And human trafficking is the fastest growing criminal enterprise. I believe it's surpassed now guns and is almost right up there equally with drugs, if it hasn't surpassed it.
Really?
Well, the reason being is you sell a gun once, you sell a drug once or twice, but a human, you can resell in a day multiple times. One human being is worth $300,000 a year to a trafficker, just one.
Oh my God. That's just alarming and disgusting with all in one, right? I mean, is there other organizations? So you guys are like a hotline. I mean, are people able to get through easily, like when they make that phone call? Because I know that, you know, it's almost, to me, if this was, you know, my child or my friend and I was aware, like it's an emergency, you know, it's like I need answers, I need help, I want to get this, you know. So is it something that when they call, they're able to get through, like you have enough, you know, kind of people on the other end in that call center?
So how it works is we're available because we're support line 8 to 8, Monday through Friday.
Okay.
So if you do not get through to a person immediately, if you call between 8 and 8, we will get back to you that day.
Okay.
If If it's after hours, leave a message. We'll get back to you within that next business day. Myself or Kelly Litbeck is our founder. We'll pick up the phone on the weekend and call if you call that support line on the weekend. That's not uncommon. If it's an emergency and you feel like your child's missing, they're endangered, please, please, please reach out to your local police department. That's going to be the fastest way. And if you have evidence that your child is being trafficked, make sure that you talk to the police in the appropriate ways. Because if you just say, my daughter or son just walked out the door and they left, well, the police, they classify that as a runaway. And just in Houston alone, they get roughly 300 calls for runaways a day.
Really?
And so
you have to be very specific with what's going on to
yes.
get, the attention it needs.
Right. And so some of the things that you definitely want to say is, I saw my daughter, she's been hanging out with a 21-year-old guy. I've seen these conversations. If you find anything on your phone, on your child's phone or device that is suspect, whether it's photos, conversations, videos, our first instinct as a parent is to protect and delete.
Okay.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that. What I'm going to suggest is you confiscate their devices. You're going to turn off Bluetooth and turn off Wi-Fi. Immediately turn it off and put it into airplane mode.
Okay.
And then you can reach out to Internet Crimes Against Children, and they can help direct you. So you'll call their cyber tip line.
Okay.
Or you can go to Missing and Exploited Children, and you're able to provide a tip through there.
Okay. So I'm gonna put all of these,
Perfect.
in the links below that way people can access these at any given time. Because going back to, you said ICAC, which is Internet Crimes Against Children.
Yep.
And that has like its own specific line.
Yep, it's a cyber tip line.
That you can call, okay.
Yep.
So, and again, for the viewers out there, you can call 833-CP-GUIDE to reach the Childproof America National Family Support Line. And I encourage you to do so if you feel that you know somebody or your own child has been trafficked. Thank you so much for being here, Angela. This is really valuable information. I mean, as these numbers increase, it's people like yourself that are, available to these families and children. That's really going to make a difference. So I really appreciate it, and I hope that we can help out in other ways. With this episode airing, and anybody we can connect you with, we will absolutely do so. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. We hope that you were able to learn something, and I will provide the links below as well as the phone number if you are needing to reach out. So thank you, Hatching for Health family, for tuning in to tonight's episode. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday at 7:30.